Howdy, everyone. I am working on reassembling the fuselage permanently. I obviously had everything taken apart. I stripped it all down back to the individual bare pieces. And now I'm in the process of doing the reassembly, which of course requires all of the cleaning, edge finishing, deburring, dimpling, things of that nature. So real quick, obviously I've got the tail cone upside down back on the sawhorses. Prior to doing that, I riveted this bulkhead in place. Let me see if I can get my hand in here. This bulkhead here, I riveted this in place, not along the edges, just this center part here. There's a brace that runs up in here. I riveted that to the skin. You might be able to see that here. I don't know if you can see those rivets. There's a line of rivets that run through here. I riveted that, and I also did some riveting in this area in here. So that was done first after I cleaned everything, which I've already talked about with the blue tape and the cleaning. Then I machine countersunk the longerons, which I may or may not have talked about. I think I have. I had done the machining on my drill press. Then I put the longerons into the tail cone, and then I flipped the tail cone upside down, which is how you see it currently, of course. And then I started on the center section. Now remember, I talked about having notes written all over the place. So I paid really close attention to my notes, cleaned everything really well, made sure that all of the holes that were drilled when the skin was in place, all the match drilled holes, I made sure all of those on both sides of the hole, those were deburred. Whatever notes I had written, tweak this, tweak that, I made sure I took care of all of that. I checked and rechecked the plans, both the drawn plans and the written instructions, just to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. If you're doing a tail dragger, which is what I'm doing, there are some bolts you need to be sure that you put in place. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts on both sides. So it's 6 here, 6 over there if you're doing a tail dragger. Make sure you get those in place. And that is actually shown. Let me see if I can flip through this quickly here. Oh, here it is. So that is drawing 34, and it's in this fuselage gusset area. It shows you the bolts here. There are 3 here, and these 2 here, and this one here. So those are the 6. And you can see that's called out somewhere that it's for the tail dragger, I believe. But anyway, drawing 34 is dedicated only to the RV7, so that is the tail dragger, and this is dedicated only to the tail dragger, so that's why these bolts are shown here. So, like I said, go through the drawings, go through the written material or the written instructions, make sure you haven't missed anything. Once I got the center section cleaned up, I brought it over, put it in place, put some clecos in it. I started riveting this corner brace that's in here. I got some rivets in that. These rivets here cannot be put in yet because the side skin goes up underneath here. So I wanted to leave some rivets open so I can flex the skin to get the side skin to fit underneath it. Make sure you dimple things that need to be dimpled. Make sure you seam the flanges to make sure that they're square, dimple, flute, anything like that. Go very slow, very methodically, take your time. So now I've got the center section up, tail cone up. I'm currently working on the side skins. This skin here is almost ready to go. I deburred, edge finished. Again, I paid attention to my notes. I had to, make sure I got these holes in the right locations and the right size. I made a note here. I am not doing a step at this time, so this hole gets filled with a rivet. Pay really close attention to the call outs for the rivets, because a lot of these rivets, these were match drilled when the skin was on the fuselage, but when you look at the call outs, a lot of these are not flush rivets. They are the 470 rivets, which are the domed head. So in certain locations, you don't need to dimple the skin. And I have those marked just with a marker. I don't know if that's going to show up, but I've outlined the areas. Anything within those outlines do not get dimpled. And then there are a couple of areas such as this and this, which I have circled. They don't get dimpled either because they use the round head, the domed head rivets, or because you don't put any rivets in when you install it. There's other brackets and stuff that needs to go in here, so you don't do any rivets. You don't dimple, you don't rivet. You have to leave that open for future attachment. So that's what I've just finished. I marked off the locations that are not going to get dimpled. And next up is to dimple. So everything else that is not marked on here gets dimpled, either a number 40 dimple or a number 30 dimple. So that's what I'm getting ready to do now. There's my setup. Of course, I use this bench as well. I just lay the skin right across here. So I'm going to dimple this thing, and then I'm going to try to get it up on the fuselage and clecoed, and then I'll do the other skin. All right, moving on.